calls. I turned my phone off, went back to coaching that game because I'd made a commitment to my twin boys, to the rest of their teammates, and also to the parents. And we got 2 victories that day. But that same commitment is the same commitment that I'm going to make to every listener that's out here, every single constituent in this district, to take hold of any issue they care about and move it through Washington with that same type of commitment that I made to go back and coach that game. Now, the tone of this race, 5 minutes after I got the nomination, my opponent, who's not here today, attacked me. Nancy Pelosi and the National Democrats attacked me. The first ad we put out that many of you have seen down here shows me coaching my youth football league team that my boys are on, talking about the economy and our $16 trillion national debt. The same day that TV ad ran, the very first time, I was attacked by my opponent, who's not here, and by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat Campaign Congressional Committee in countless ads. And unfortunately, that set the tone of this race. And I was hoping to avoid that. And I was hoping that we could talk substantive issues, because there are some very stark contrasts between me and the candidates in this race. And that's what I'm glad we get a chance to talk issues here today. I'm glad to talk issues with John on a regular basis. And that's what's important to the voters of this district.
And John, your thoughts on the tone of the race as it is now?
When I first met David and Rodney, I told them both that I wouldn't say anything negative about them or their policies, because that's what I think the people want. I think, unfortunately, for years, and so not with this race in mind in particular, but I think negative ads poison the well, poison the public well of our democracy, and they turn people off. And that's why at least it contributes to why people have such a low opinion of the performance of Congress and the way politics are going generally. As a person, as an independent person, to get on the ballot, I had to get 5,000 signatures. I personally got 5,100 signatures. And over again, I heard that the politicians don't care about the ordinary person. It's all about the people who have the power and the money, and that's all they're concerned with. And unfortunately, a lot of that money goes to poisoning the well. So we're kind of stuck in a cycle, and we need leadership to get out of it.
We need a break. When we come back, we'll dive into some of the more upfront issues, some of the issues that have made the headlines. So stick around. We'll have plenty more with Rodney Davis and John Hartman right after these messages. Let's Talk returns, and glad you could join us today. I'm glad to have 2 of the 3 candidates on the ballot in the 13th district race, U.S. House 13th district race. Joining us today, John Hartman and Rodney Davis joining us today. And John, we'll start with you on this next topic, and it's the economy. It's hard to get around the fact that the economy isn't where it was promised to be when our current president took office 4 years ago. That being said, we can point fingers all we want, but that doesn't fix the problem. How do you plan to fix the problem if the voters send you to office?
Well, I'm glad you framed the question that way, because the question is always, what I want to know from a candidate is, what will you do to make things better? What's the way forward? What do we need to do? And clearly, we need to deal with our deficit now. And I strongly support the Simpson-Bowles Commission plan. Erskine-Bowles says that not doing something about this will lead to the most predictable economic crisis in history. And it's not like we don't know how to do this. I mean, the first President Bush went back on his pledge of read my lips, no new taxes, because he could see where the budget deficit was going. He knew it would jeopardize his presidency to raise taxes, but he knew it was the best for the country. And so he agreed, and we had responsible legislation after that in 1993 and 1997 that included pay-as-you-go discipline. And by 1998, 99, 2000, and 2001, we had balanced or small surpluses. At that time, the revenue taken by the federal government was 21% of GDP. And today, it is 15.5%, and we are $1 trillion in the hole. So the Simpson-Bowles Commission plan does both. In fact, it does everything. It's a responsible plan. Their assignment was to get as many Democrats and Republicans to agree on a plan that would, find the middle ground and get to work on it. And they did. And they say they have 40 senators right now that are in support. It cuts back on all programs. Its primary benefit is to dramatically reduce tax credits. They say that we are spending $1 trillion a year on tax credits. This is backdoor spending. And just to give you one example of how that works, of course, we have the mortgage deduction from our taxes right now. What people don't realize, I bet, is at a time when we're running a $1 trillion deficit, the top fifth of the federal subsidy to housing, the top fifth in income gets 4 times the break that the bottom fifth of income does. So you got the poorest people in the bottom fifth getting 1/4 of the housing subsidy because the tax breaks that go to wealthy homes. Now, I don't think that we need to get rid of the mortgage deduction, but I think that it could be capped. I mean, at a time when we need money desperately, we need to get on a trajectory, because if we don't, we're going to end up like Greece, and people are going to stop believing that we're going to pay them back. They're going to raise interest on us to cover the risk. And in Greece right now, the youth unemployment, people under 25, is 55%. In the United States, it's 15%. So this is the economic crisis that Erskine-Bowles is talking about. And I am very concerned that we're heading that direction, and we've got to change course. And I think Simpson-Bowles gives us the best opportunity to do that, and I support it firmly.
Rodney, same question. How do you plan on fixing the economy if the voters send you to Washington?
Well, thank you. And, the first thing we need to do is to talk to those who are going to create the jobs that politicians keep talking about creating. But unfortunately, politicians out in Washington right now are doing everything they can to create an environment where they kill job creation. I've talked to countless small business owners over the last 6 months in this campaign, and I've heard one word: certainty. And because of our plan to give small business owners, the job creators in this country, certainty, I've been endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. I've been endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business, groups that represent those job creators that we need to be able to grow. And the last thing, I agree with President Obama when he said the last thing we can do during economic distress, like we're in now, is raise taxes. However, because of the inability of Republicans and Democrats in Washington, D.C. to come together and find a solution, every single American at the end of this year will experience the largest income tax increase in American history. As a matter of fact, what I don't think most Americans realize is because of inaction in Washington and a lack of leadership, what has happened is they will have their check go down in January because the tax tables will revert back from current rates to 2001 levels. We can't have that in America right now. Our economy is still slow. Our unemployment is still much higher in this district than the national average. And the only way to address that is to ensure that we just extend our current tax rates permanently. I'm not saying cut taxes. I'm saying keep the status